is always a good survey of kind of like what education is going on campus. So, there's a lot of controversy about whether or not the Willie Lynch papers happened. If you're really interested, I've combined all the archived information. It's on my website. You can download it and read it. Somebody in this room will actually do that. I think that's weird. But anyway, it's on my website. Knock yourself out. If you, also a great movie, The Great Debaters. There's a piece in the movie that talks about the Willie Lynch papers that's really intense. And I saw it on a plane and I was like, is that stealing my thunder? No, it's good education. Okay, so let's pretend that this theory was written by Jessica Simpson. I don't care if it's true or not. I think it's an amazing point. Okay? So you are in a position where you're going to have to be an ally to your residents, other residents when you're on rounds, and weird, you might be perceived as some kind of student leader, so you might be some kind of leader for campus. Okay? No pressure. It can be a lot of pressure, actually. So, the Willie Lynch papers. A slave owner is upset that his slaves are not working to their fullest potential. They're like rebelling or something. Sometimes when I start out this story, white people typically are very surprised because we're never educated about slaves ever rebelling. We think they're all happy. But actually being enslaved sucks, and sometimes they voice that. It's very strange. Again, white people classes, right? Okay. So the slaves are out rebelling and they're not working. The slave owner's pissy because he paid good money for this. So he goes out and hires a consultant. The birth of my career. So the consultant is Willie Lynch. And the slave owner says, I need these slaves to work to their highest potential so I can get my money's worth. What should I do? So the consultant did some thinking. And in this speech, what Willie Lynch determined was that the only way you're going to be able to keep enslaved people working to their fullest potential is that you're going to have to create an environment where the only person they can trust is the slave owner. The strongest tool of oppression is the mind of the oppressed. So as a slave owner, how on earth am I going to get the people that I enslave to only trust me? That's a tall order. Yes? You can think of it as you and your residents, right? Why are they going to come to you? You're the one that busts them, right? So, Willie Lynch said, what you do is you pit them against each other. You pit field slaves versus house slaves, women versus men, children versus adults, light skin versus dark skin, literate versus illiterate, this plantation versus that plantation. You cause enough frustration down here that they start trying to figure out this hierarchy of oppression. Who's paying something? Who's on top of who? As a slave owner, I don't care how you work this out because I am clearly still on top. Do you see how that works? So they're so busy fighting down here, the only person they can trust is me. That's it. They'll work to their highest potential. What I think is interesting is that how is that different than RAs versus residents? Staff versus students. Faculty versus staff. Humboldt State College students versus people who live here. I hear that a lot, like y'all don't live here or something. Out-of-staters versus in-staters, first-year students versus graduating seniors, grad students versus undergrads, right? We are still pitting each other against each other. Men versus women, right? Straight people versus not straight people, Christians versus non-Christians. Americans, air quotes, versus illegal aliens, pejorative language. We are still pitting each other against each other. Will Lynch said that if you do this in 1712, when he said this, it's going to last for 300 years. It is 2008. We have 4 years left to prove Will Lynch wrong. What I've done tonight is not give you a bulleted list of what to do. All I've tried to do is show you what I've chosen to do, which is allow myself not to be perfect. I do not know the answers to everything. I barely can tie my shoes some days. I allow myself to make some mistakes. I try to limit some of the pressure I put on myself. which is hard as an anal retentive control freak, obsessive compulsive, working on that. I allow myself to laugh at inappropriate jokes as long as eventually I realize that might have been inappropriate. I clock out and get pedicures. I do things that I'm not proud of, but I'm really proud when I catch myself. And then hopefully the next time I don't do it again. What I've done tonight is hopefully made you really uncomfortable. If you leave this space comfortable, that is your own fault. Some of you are very comfortable. We'll let you know when you wake up. If you leave here comfortable, it's your fault. Because you have a dominant identity. Whatever that dominant identity is, even if it's just access to a college education, that is a privilege some people don't have. What's important is for you to realize that you have more privilege chips than you probably deserve. Help me. Spend your chips of privilege wisely. We have 4 years left to prove Will Lynch wrong, and I cannot do that by myself. I am a mess. And some of the times, I make really good decisions. Occasionally. Usually it's on accident. When we're talking about being an ally, it's not about always having every answer. It is not about solving every problem. It is not about being super person and putting your cape on. It's not about watching every movie with subtitles. It's not about eating food that gives you gas. It's about recognizing what your own behavior patterns are, what makes you uncomfortable, and trying to go there as often as possible. And I believe that together, we can clock in 10% of the time. If we all do that, we will be the change that we want to be. Thank you.